Right, so these are my friends Rachel, Marc, and Caitlyn. This is my friend Carly and my friend Kenzie. You can't even see me. The question is frequently asked, why does a man become a drug addict? The answer is that he usually does not intend to become an addict. You don't wake up one morning and decide to be a drug addict. The question, of course, could be asked, why do you ever use or ever try narcotics? Why do you continue to use long enough to become an addict? You become a narcotics addict because you do not have any strong motivation for the other direction. Most addicts I have talked to report a similar experience. They just drifted along until they got hooked. You don't decide to be an addict. One morning you wake up and you're sick and addicted. This quote by author William S. Burroughs reveals a sad truth about drug addiction. Even though methamphetamine is a stimulant and not a narcotic, the nature of the addiction is the same. Most people don't wake up and decide to be a meth addict. They just don't have a reason to not become an addict. Now, most of you have probably heard about how dangerous drugs are, but how much do you actually know? Drugs are constantly changing, there's a wide variety of them, and they're a problem even here in Colby. Today, I'm going to focus on one type of drug, methamphetamine. I believe that the more you know, the less likely you are to use. So today, we're going to talk about the ingredients in meth, how it's made, and how it affects the body. By the end of this speech, I hope you have a strong motivation to not use meth. First, we're going to talk about the ingredients in meth. Now, meth contains a variety of ingredients, all of which are harmful to your body. Each batch of meth is a little bit different, but there are several ingredients that are found in almost every type of meth. The first is acetone. This is found in nail polish remover and paint thinner. On its own, it's very flammable, and it's what gives nail polish remover its distinct odor. Pseudoephedrine. This can be found in your normal over-the-counter Sudafed. If you overdose on pseudoephedrine, it can lead to nervous system damage and damage to your heart. Sulfuric acid. This is found in toilet bowl cleaner and drain cleaner. It's corrosive and it will burn your skin. Ammonium nitrate. This is actually an ingredient in bombs, and when it's overheated, it explodes, which is why meth labs sometimes explode. So this is a picture of a trailer that had a meth lab in it. Luckily, no one was killed in this explosion, but one man was burned all over his body. He was lucky, however, because people do frequently die from meth lab explosions. The last ingredient I'm going to talk about is anhydrous ammonia. Now, I'm sure some of you recognize these tanks from around here, as anhydrous ammonia is a fertilizer used by farmers. What it does to your body is extract the moisture from your body tissues. Anhydrous means without water, so that's why it's attracted to your body. After it pulls the moisture out of you, it'll burn your skin. Diane Organ, who used to be a probation officer for the Kansas Department of Corrections, said she's seen a picture where the anhydrous was so attracted to a man's moisture that it ripped the eyes out of his sockets. So all these ingredients are dangerous on their own. When you think about it, it's amazing that our body can withstand them when they're all mixed together. When you do mix them together, you get methamphetamine. So next, we're going to talk about how meth is made. There are two types of meth, crystal meth and powdered meth. Powdered meth looks like kind of a cream-colored flour, and crystal meth looks like shards of glass. Crystal meth is commonly made in Mexico and is purer than powdered meth, which means it's been cooked down more and it's like 100% meth. Powdered meth is frequently cut, which means ingredients are added to it that won't actually make you high. So they might add flour or baking soda so they can get more out of one batch. Crystal meth is frequently made in Mexico. When you hear on the news about drug cartels making large batches of drugs, they're talking about super labs in Mexico. Now over here, when people are cooking meth, they'll use a coffee filter to separate the solids from the liquids. Over in Mexico, they're making so much that they use bed sheets as a filter. So like I said, the other type of meth is powdered meth, and it can be cooked in two different ways. There's the Nazi cook and the phosphorus cook. Phosphorus cook gets its name because it contains red phosphorus, like what's on the red end of a matchstick. It's not as common though because it's messy and it leaves red residue on your walls, which means there's evidence that you've been cooking meth in your house. The Nazi cook gets its name because German soldiers were giving methamphetamine during World War II, so they would stay alert and awake on the battlefield. So if you're going to cook meth, you're going to need a place to cook it at. This is a picture of a meth lab. Ignore the rifle for a second, but I wanted to point out how much Sudafed is needed to make one batch of meth. This bottle up here with the skull and crossbones, I think it's a bottle of toluene, which is used in brake fluid. And down here is nail polish remover, which would contain the acetone that I talked about earlier. This is another picture of a meth lab. I wanted to point out that down here, there's a little kid's teddy bear. So when someone's making meth, or when they're on meth, they're usually not concerned about their own safety, or even the safety of their children. Now meth can also be made in a pot bottle, and this is becoming more popular because it's like a one-step process. It's sort of like a shake and bake for meth. And it only takes a couple of hours to make a batch of meth, whereas a meth lab, it can take several days. So now that you know about the ingredients in meth and how it's made, you need to know how it affects your body. The first thing meth does, of course, is make you high, which is why people use it in the first place. And this is accomplished because meth releases all the dopamines from your pituitary gland. This is why your first high is your best high, because your pituitary gland is full of dopamine. The next time you use meth, you don't have as much dopamine, so you can't get as high. And addicts call this chasing the high because they're constantly trying to achieve the first high that they felt. But they can't because they don't have as much dopamine. So to illustrate this, I found this website. It's called methproject.org, and it can answer pretty much any question you have about meth. So this hammer represents the dosage of meth, and the bell represents how high someone gets. So the first time you use meth, you can use a little bit, and you'll have the best high of your life because you're full of dopamines. The next time you can even use more meth, but you won't get as high because you don't have as much dopamine. Eventually, you'll run out of dopamine and you'll become clinically depressed because you no longer have anything to make you feel good. Eventually, you're going to need methamphetamine to feel anything at all. So besides making you high, meth affects your body in other ways. When people are high on meth, they often hallucinate, and one of the most common hallucinations they have is called crank bugs. This is when they feel like they have bugs crawling underneath their skin, and meth users are covered in sores because they're trying to dig the bugs out from underneath their skin. It also makes you clench your jaw because of the neurological damage it produces, and this can lead to meth mouth. So meth mouth occurs when people clench their jaw so tightly that it cracks their teeth. And also, people who are on meth aren't concerned with basic hygiene. And finally, smoking meth probably isn't very good for your gums. People who are coming off of a high are oftentimes very aggressive, and it can lead to secondary aging, which means you look older than you should because of harmful things you've done to your body. So this lady started using meth when she was 28 years old, and it ends when she's 37. As you can see, her face rapidly aged, and this is an example of secondary aging. When someone is high on meth, they'll often go through what is called tweaking, and this is when they go through or have repeated bizarre behaviors such as compulsively cleaning one corner of their house or taking their lawnmower apart. And people who are addicted to meth are so desperate they'll do almost anything. Some meth users will actually save their urine and cook that down and smoke the meth that they can get out of that. And eventually, using meth for years and years, or even overdosing on meth, will lead to near death. So in conclusion, despite what we know, meth is changing. Manufacturers are making it purer and stronger. But now that you know what's in meth, how it's made, and what it does to your body, I hope I've given you a strong motivation to never try it. Using meth once may make you an addict, or it may not. With meth, you never know. But one thing that is certain is that using meth one time will affect the rest of your life. Like William S. Burroughs said, nobody wakes up and decides to be an addict, but using meth one time can make you eventually wake up sick and addicted.